Hey, what's new and exciting? It's Kevin O'Shaughnessy here, and we are continuing our series on the major scale, getting to know it, using it to get to know the names of the notes on the neck, and how to break out of other scale fingering patterns that you might know, so you can sort of get out of the box and use the scales a bit more efficiently than you might be doing already. Now, if you haven't seen the first video, you really need to go check that out. I introduce a lot of vocabulary that I'm going to be continuing to use in this video, and there's a lot of exposition that you might need. Now, if you've been studying scales for a little while, maybe you don't need to go through it, but I recommend you do it anyway. Check it out, see if there's anything you missed. So, last time we talked about the sharp keys, okay? So that was the keys C through C sharp. And today we're going to continue that. We're going to continue around the circle of fifths to the flat keys. And we're going linearly along the neck, and it really spreads out the notes of the scale so you can get to know the neck a bit more efficiently. So a couple of quick things, just a little bit of a recap from last time. We discovered that our major scale was a very simple formula: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And we also found that as we continued along the circle of fifths, every time we went to a new scale, we took all of the note names from the previous scale, we put that into the new scale, and then by simply raising the last note, or the second to last note of the scale, we got the new scale, and it stayed within the formula. So, for example, we did the C major scale, which was C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and when we continued up the circle of fifths to G, we took all those same letter names. We took G, A, B, C, D, E, and we raised F to F sharp to finally end on G. And we went all the way around the neck doing all of that, all the way to C sharp, which brought us here to the second fret of the B string. Now, here's the wacky part. There are three of the previous major scales that can be perceived as flat keys as well. Okay, so the B major scale that we covered in the last video can also be perceived as C flat. The F sharp major scale can be G flat, and the C sharp scale can be D flat. Now, a flat, as I stated in the last video, lowers a note a half a step. So while a sharp raises a note a half a step, the flat lowers a note a half a step. Now, the same formula is about raising the second to last note of the scale is going to hold true, but we're going to introduce a new accidental called the natural sign. And what that does is it cancels a flat or a sharp. And that's how we're going to raise the flat notes to natural notes. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's probably a little confusing right now, but we'll see it in action. So come to the A string, second fret. This is B. Now, when we did this scale in the last video, it was B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. Okay? But since B is a half step below C, we can conceive that scale as, or we can rename that scale as C flat. And just like the C sharp scale, every note is going to be flat. So it's going to be C flat, D flat, E flat, F flat, which is kind of a weird one, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat. All right? Now, we're going to continue down to the second fret of the low E string. Okay? And this was F sharp. And what we're going to do now is we're going to rename that G flat. So we've got G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat. Now, what we're going to do, since we don't have a sharp to finish the formula, we're going to remove the flat and call it F natural to G flat. Okay? So we took all of the notes from the C flat major scale, and remember, they were all flat, and we're taking that F at the end, we're taking what was an F flat in the C flat scale, and we're using a natural. We're canceling the flat, and we're turning that into F natural again. So one more time, we've got G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F natural, G flat. And since the low E string and the high E string are identical, except for the fact that they are in different octaves, we just transfer the whole thing up. So G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, G flat. Okay? Now we continue along. We're going to bring this down to the second fret of the B string, and this is D flat now. In the last video it was C sharp, but C sharp and D flat are the same thing. You can either raise C up a half step, call it C sharp, or lower D a half step and call it D flat. If that seems a little confusing right now, it's because it is. But the more you use it, the more you get used to it, and it really is not all that confusing, especially since you're not necessarily going to be bouncing back and forth between C sharp and D flat. You're going to pick one way of using the scale, all right? So we've got, in this case, we're going to call it D flat, D flat, E flat, F. Remember, we carried that over from the G flat scale. G flat, A flat, B flat, and now we're going to take what was C flat. We're going to use a natural, and we're going to raise that up a half step to C, and then we're back at D flat. Okay? So those notes are going to be D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat. Okay? Now again, the B string is tuned a little differently on the guitar, so when we go to the G string, we're going to drop down to the first fret from the second fret. This is now A flat. Again, 5 notes away from D flat. We're following the circle of fifths. So we go D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat. Okay? So this is A flat. First fret, G string, A flat. A flat, B flat, C, which we carried over from the D flat scale. D flat, E flat, F, G natural, A flat. Okay, that was going to be a G flat in the D flat scale. It's now G natural to make A flat. We go down to the first fret of the D string, and we've got E flat now. Carry all the notes over from A flat. E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D natural now, E flat. Now we move to the first fret of the A string. We have B flat. B flat, C, D, right, as carried over from the last scale. E flat, F, G, A natural, B flat. So you see as we're going along, we keep taking away a flat. Okay, so that makes things a little easier. We go down to F, which is at the first fret of the low E string. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E natural, F. And once again, since whatever you can do on the low E string, you do on the high E string, same scale. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And look where that brings us. If we carry that down to the B string, we are now back at the first fret, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps or flats. This is the key of C major. All right? So you see what happens is as you go along the circle of fifths, first you add sharps. You keep adding one sharp at a time until eventually all of the notes are sharp. There are 3 keys in there that overlap. They can be called either a sharp key or a flat key, or a sharp scale or a flat scale. So like the C flat scale was also the B major, the B scale. All right, even though it doesn't have sharp in the name, it uses sharps to create the scale. And then as you continue around the circle of fifths, we keep taking one flat away until eventually all of the notes are natural again. All right, so I hope that makes a certain amount of sense, or at least I hope as you start to use it, it will make a little bit more sense. Again, this is part of a series, so we're going to discuss later on how we can use these scales and how we can move from scale fingerings you might already know into these more linear fingerings to create new phrasing ideas and things like that. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you can see when I post a new video. And in the meantime, stay tuned for the next video in the series where we're going to be discussing lateral moving scales. So this is linear going along the neck. We're going to be discussing the major scale laterally. So if you got any questions, hit me up in the comments. In the meantime, I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy, and I will see you in the next video.